So when it comes to camping and backpacking, there are, for the most part, depending on your budget and comfort preferences, two different types of sleeping pads to choose from. In this video, I'll review my new-ish sleeping pad, the Thermarest NeoAir XLite. I'll show you the pros and cons of both the XLite and inflatable sleeping pads in general, so that you can get a feel for whether or not it's the best option for you. All that and more coming up right after this. Hello my people, FinerBub here. Thanks for checking out the video. For those of you who don't know, on this channel, I'm all about sharing my thoughts and experiences on the best spots to check out and the best gear to bring with. So if like me, you want to spend more time outside appreciating the finer things in life, do yourself a favor and consider subscribing. Also, feel free to check out the description below for links to the written version of this video in addition to any of the products I mention. Alrighty then, without further ado, let us begin. So today we're talking about sleeping pads, specifically the Thermarest NeoAir XLite, and why after owning this one for over a year, I can confidently say that it is the best sleeping pad I've ever used. Before we jump into the review, I just want to be clear, this is not a sponsored video. Everything you see here was purchased by me at full price, discounting any sales that might have been going on at the time, but yeah. The point is that I am in no way affiliated with Thermarest, and I'm not being paid to say any of this. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we may proceed. So I know I mentioned that I've had this sleeping pad for over a year, but truth be told, I actually had my eye on it for a lot longer than that. When I first started researching and looking into sleeping pads back in 2017, I wanted to get this NeoAir XLite right away. It was by far the most popular option that both friends and online reviewers were pushing me towards, but because I also had to get a tent, a backpack, and a bunch of other stuff, I knew that in order to stay under my budget, I'd have to look for a cheaper option. So as I mentioned in my little intro segment, when it comes to sleeping pads, you're typically presented with two categories that each have their own set of advantages and disadvantages. The first category is inflatable air mattresses like the NeoAir XLite, and the second is closed cell foam pads like this one that I ended up buying back in 2017. Foam pads have their own set of advantages and disadvantages that you can learn all about in my last video. Link. So the main advantages you get with inflatable pads are the comfort and portability factors. Air mattresses are undeniably more comfortable than foam pads. They're better for things like sleeping on your side, and they keep you high enough off the ground that even if you didn't pick the smoothest spot to pitch your tent, that tiny bit of elevation makes it so that you won't feel anything poking into your back. Unless, of course, you lie on something too pointy and you pop it, in which case you'll probably feel it. Inflatable pads also keep you much warmer, a stat that's measured in R value. The higher the R value, the better the pad will be at preventing the cold, lifeless ground from sucking the warmth right out of your body. That actually reminds me about something else I should touch on. When most people think about the gear they need to bring on a camping trip, the first two things they think of are always tent and sleeping bag. But the truth is that in terms of keeping you warm, the sleeping pad is actually a lot more important than either one of them. So whenever you watch any of those wilderness survival shows with Bear Grylls or Les Stroud, anytime they bed down for the night, their first priority is always to collect some sort of insulating debris, like leaves or spruce boughs, that they can use as sort of a makeshift mattress that will keep them slightly elevated off the ground. Although this may make the ground a bit more comfy to sleep on, the main reason they do that is to keep from freezing. See, there are two ways that your body can lose heat: convection and conduction. The best way to explain convection or convective heat loss is simply wind. So imagine this for a second. If the air is cold, it's easy for your body to create a warm protective microclimate by transferring some of your body heat to the air molecules around it. That's basically why we wear clothes. They hold the warmed up air close to our bodies so that we don't have to work as hard to stay warm. But when it's windy outside, even though your body can easily heat up the air around you, the wind is continuously blowing that warm air away, forcing your body to heat up new air molecules again and again and again until you give away all your body heat and you get hypothermia and die. Unlike convective heat loss that usually takes a little while to set in, conductive heat loss on the other hand happens a lot faster, and it only occurs when you physically touch something that's colder than your body temperature, like say the ground for example, which due to the laws of thermodynamics will actually suck the warmth right out of your body when you're lying on top of it. So this is why wearing footwear with properly insulated soles has such a massive impact on your overall body temperature during the winter months when the ground is really cold. The higher R value rating of the material in the soles of your winter boots prevents you from needlessly losing tons of body heat through the bottoms of your feet, like you would if you were only wearing sneakers or something like that. So when you're in a tent, the materials in your sleeping pad with the high R value will be your first line of defense against the cold, lifeless ground. Yes, it's cold and lifeless, precious. Sleeping bags, on the other hand, really only prevent convective heat loss. Your sleeping bag's fluffy insulation, or the loft as it is sometimes called, only works when it's fluffed up enough to get air trapped inside between the little fluffy feathers and fibers. This is actually why so many people are switching from sleeping bags to quilts nowadays. Because no matter how warm your sleeping bag is supposed to be, if you zip it up around you, there will always be a significant portion of the insulation material that's rendered completely useless by way of the fact that you're lying on top of it, preventing any air from getting in that your body could then warm up to form that protective microclimate that I mentioned earlier. And that's why you need a sleeping pad even when you sleep in a hammock. In those cases, however, instead of insulating against the cold ground or conduction, using a sleeping pad in a hammock protects you from losing body heat to the wind blowing underneath you, or convection. Side note, as an alternative to a sleeping pad, you can also use an underquilt for hammock camping in cold weather, but this video is about sleeping pads, so I'm just not gonna get into that now. So, the reason that inflatable pads tend to keep you warmer than foam pads is that once your body warms up the air trapped inside the air mattress, all that air acts as this super thick protective microclimate barrier against the cold, which of course could never be achieved on the same level with a sleeping pad that doesn't inflate. Now, keep in mind that this is only my experience based on the few sleeping pads I've tried and might not be the case with every comparison, so make sure you pay close attention in the specs to the R value on any other models that you decide to check out. Higher R value equals warmer U value. Higher is warmer. All right, let's get back to business. What was I saying again? Yes. Okay, inflatable pads are also much more portable. Not only do they weigh a lot less, but they also pack down so small when you deflate them that they barely take up any space, especially when you compare them to the bulky foam pads that typically have to be rolled up and strapped to the outside of your pack. However, as great as they are, inflatable pads do have some drawbacks. First, assuming that you don't pay extra for the models with the self-inflating valves, you will have to spend a minute or two blowing it up before you can use it. And that's something you don't have to worry about with a foam pad, obviously. Maybe not. Just, try not to pass out before the mat is inflated underneath you. Pro tip. Second, despite advancements in ripstop materials and whatnot, with any inflatable option, you always run the risk of accidentally puncturing the material on something like a stick or a thorn that you didn't see when you were setting up your tent, which of course renders your air mattress about as useless as the sleeping bag insulation pressed between your back and the ground. Although it doesn't inspire much confidence in terms of a company's faith in their own products, most inflatable pads, including this one, do come with a patch or two in case you need a quick fix in a desperate situation. Ideally, I'd prefer to never need one, and so far I never have, but then again, I've only had this pad for a year, so yeah, I'll keep you posted on that one. Either way, I'm glad it's included, but yeah, enough said. And last but not least, the third and final drawback that plagues not only the owner of an inflatable sleeping pad, but anyone else who dares to sleep anywhere nearby, is of course that noise. Now, obviously, Thermarest is not the only sleeping pad manufacturer out there, and there are plenty of other inflatable options whose price point falls somewhere in between these two, but I'm not about to recommend things that I haven't used or thoroughly looked into, to say the least. And given Thermarest's long-standing reputation for producing quality sleeping pads, I can confidently say that either one of these is a solid option to start with, depending, of course, on your budget. And based on my experience over the past few years, camping out with the ridge rests in a wide range of temperatures and conditions in all sorts of places, like Western Massachusetts, upstate New York, Iceland, White Mountain National Forest, and Shenandoah National Park, I've known for a while now that even though the ridge rest is much cheaper than the NeoAir XLite, it's more than capable of holding its own, and I have no issues recommending it to anyone for any type of camping situation. I mean, when we were in Iceland, it got down below freezing a few of the nights, and me and my buddy MacBook both used this thing, and we were fine. Despite the fact that the ridge rest provides more R value than most people will ever need from a sleeping pad, this, of course, doesn't mean that there aren't options out there that make the whole process a little more comfortable and therefore more enjoyable. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you need to recreate all the comforts of home while you're out in the woods. In fact, for the sake of living in the moment and appreciating the nature in which you have chosen to spend some of your oh so precious time, I'd say that that's probably a bad idea. Philosophically speaking, of course.
But that don't mean the love between us ain't real. God damn it.
One more thing. If the NeoAir XLite isn't out of your price range and you know that you're one of those people who tends to nearly freeze on a nightly basis, I will say that you should probably also take a look at the NeoAir X Therm from Thermarest as well. It's a bit more expensive than the XLite, but for that extra money you do get a significantly higher R value than either of the two Thermarest sleeping pads I previously mentioned in this video. Although I haven't tested it myself, I did consider the option before I bought my XLite, but my friend Henry talked me out of it when he told me that he or one of his friends returned one after only using it a couple times because it made him so hot at night that he couldn't even sleep. So yeah, that kind of defeated the purpose. But if you get really cold at night, I'd definitely say you should check out the X Therm from Thermarest. Man, these titles, they have so many ths in them. And that's really all there is to it. But if you do decide to buy something based on one of my recommendations, please consider supporting my efforts to bring you this information by shopping through the Amazon affiliate links below. It's a great way to support this channel at no extra cost to you. So there you have it, folks. I want to wish a very warm welcome to those of you who are new to the channel. If this is the first video of mine that you've seen, I just want to let you know that I also make travel guide videos in addition to the product reviews like this one. Speaking of which, I've got a bunch of videos from my epic car camping road trip around the Ring Road in Iceland that I briefly alluded to earlier. So if you'd like some examples of situations that one of these sleeping pads has had to endure, or you just want to learn about exciting new places via yours truly, then that Iceland playlist should suit you quite nicely. Alrighty, my people, that concludes this week's episode of the FinerBub Show. FinerBub! If you do decide to get one of the sleeping pads I mentioned in this video, or if you already own one, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. If not, I hope that you at least learned something that might help with your own search for the perfect sleeping pad. But if you do decide to go with a different option, I'd still love to hear about it in the comments, especially if you think your insight can help me disprove something that I think I already know. But before you do, I just want to once again thank you oh so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. So thank you. If you're looking for new gear, don't let the small details stress you out. Remember, life's an adventure, so relax, breathe in the outdoors, and don't forget to appreciate the finer things in life. I'll see you out there, people. Peace.